What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you are new, welcome. As you can see, we are bringing back the Nothing Manacles as an updated build this season with this crazy artifact specializing in Void. Plus, last time I made a Nothing Manacles build, we were still getting some new mod systems, or I should say the mod system was still in the old set. So this right here makes it so much easier to create orbs of power literally everywhere, giving us that infinite devour because of our abilities. And you will see we changed it up with some of our aspects and fragments, so this build is super crazy, always for that devour, spreading volatility as well as just sharing that love with this season's artifact. Now, starting out right here for me, I'm using the Cataclysmic Nova Bomb. You can use whatever super you want. Vortex is also good, but I personally like Cataclysmic for this. Now, for me, I'm using Healing Rift because of one of our aspects that we have on with a Balanced Glide as well as Pocket Singularity. And then, of course, we got our Scatter Grenades, which pair perfectly with those Nothing Manacles. Our first aspect is Child of the Old Gods. Casting your Rift creates a Void Soul. When we damage a target with a weapon, that Void Soul goes to that enemy, damaging them and weakening them. So this is nice for that end game, as well as just for some of those stronger mini bosses. So it gets weakened and takes more damage. On top of that, when the target is being drained, you are granted melee and grenade energy if we are inside of that Healing Rift. So that is why we are running it, to allow us to spam our scatter grenades even a little bit more often. When we defeat that target that is being drained, we get our class ability back, allowing us to kind of spam this continuously after we defeat that enemy that is getting damaged and weakened from that Void Soul. Now, on top of that, we have Feed the Void, which counts towards that Void ability, giving us Devour. So this will count for actually the Child of the Old Gods, our Scatter Grenades, mostly what we're using it for right here, and then our Pocket Singularity as well, giving us that basic infinite Devour with this build. Final Blows restore health and extend Devour, and with how we have this built out, like I said, continuously got that up. Now, we are using Echo of Harvest as our first fragment because of that Child of the Old Gods, plus one of our other fragments. Defeating weakened targets create an Orb of Power and a Void Breach. This is double dipping, giving us the ability to create Void Breaches, which will give us class ability energy when we pick them up, as well as Orbs of Power, which we are using for our armor mods. Next on the list, we got Echo of Instability. Got a couple different weapon combos for you to try out. And this right here, when we get those defeats with our grenades, it's going to grant us volatile rounds for our weapons with the Void Burn on them. So just helping us spread that volatility and wipe out enemies with ease with this build. Third on the list for fragments, we have Echo of Persistence, which gives us that Devour has increased duration. So you see in the gameplay that we have it up for about 15 seconds after we get that initial defeat. It gives us about 6, and then those continuing defeats extend that, so we can crank it up to 15, and at that point you're getting defeats every 15 seconds easily, almost every 5-10 depending on the ad density. So this gets procced, allowing you to have Devour for basically forever with this build. And last but not least, we have Echo of Undermining. Our Void Grenades also weaken targets, which allow us to right here create Orbs of Power and Void Breaches because of that Echo of Harvest. And Child of the Old Gods also weakens targets, so enemies are going to be able to be defeated just a little bit easier a few different ways with this build. Now, for our weapon options, I'm going to go over these in tandem back to back. So our first option, we have the Lingering Dread with Disorienting Grenades and Chill Clip. So we can use this to freeze slow targets, as well as that Disorienting Grenades is very, very good in the end game with making the ads and those enemies stay away from you for a good second because of that blinding effect. I was pairing that with Graviton Lance with that Vorpal weapon and that Cosmology. So when we get those defeats, those those void little detonation bombs go everywhere, which help us do the ad clear. Volatility is absolutely insane with this weapon, and it helps us to keep that Devour up. And then, of course, we got that commemoration on reconstruction. Almost done with crafting this, so we're going to change up our perks a little bit on this, but definitely going to be using this for each of the different options. And then on the other hand, I like the Osteostriga paired with Hollow Denial, because this right here has Repulsor Brace, so all of those weaken, as well as the volatile targets that we're getting is going to give us Overshield because of Repulsor's Brace with those void debuffed targets. So this is also a very, very good weapon set to use, especially if you have any weapons with Repulsor Brace. These were just my two options right here in this set, or you could go with the Lingering Dread Graviton Lance. Now, for this artifact right here, we are really using these three mods specifically for this build this season. This build is definitely good in any season that it's going to go into, especially seasons like this when Void is highlighted. So we are using that authorized Void mod as well as authorized melee just to make them a little bit cheaper on our armor mods. But we are using Unto the Breach, Protective Breach, as well as Supernova. Now, defeating void debuff targets, so that weaken and as well as volatile, we are going to create void breaches so we can pick those up, granting us class ability. On top of that protective breach, when we pick up a void breaches, we're going to get overshields, so end game helping us stay alive this season. And with that artifact of fragment that we have on, we are also getting void breaches when we defeat weakened targets, so void breaches are going to be flowing. And last, when we pick up those void breaches again, we're going to cause the source of damage, if it is void, to create a weakening pulse, which in turn proc that Echo of Harvest, giving us even more void breaches. And then in turn, all of this stuff right here gets procced with the weakening, more void breaches. So these three are actually crazy for basically any void build this season. Now, switching up a little bit, how showing you the mods on our armor and artifacts right here. We can go into specifics when I click, but most of them are going to be just the overview like this. For our helmet, we're going to be using that Harmonic Siphon and Stasis Siphon. You can switch this up to Kinetic if you want, if you are using the Osteostriga, but with the Lingering Dread as well as our Void weapons, I was using these two, as well as Ashes to Assets. So when we're getting all of those defeats with our Nothing Manacles and the scatter grenades, we're going to be able to get back our super even faster, throwing out that damage, creating more of those void breaches, as well as continuing that Devour to be procced. Now, right here, we got the Nothing Manacles, which bring this build all together, making it an S-tier build no matter the season. We get 2 of those scatter grenade charges, allowing us to spam them all over the place, creating orbs of power, and weakening enables tracking on those scatter grenades, hence why we weren't using the overcharge for our grenades. Yes, they would do a little bit more damage when we used the overcharge aspect, but it has tracking built into these mods and this arms, so I didn't want to kind of double up on that. Now for our mods, I'm using Doubling Bolstering Detonation so we can get that class ability back super fast when we are spamming our grenades, which allow us to proc Child of the Old Gods even more often, which weakens targets everywhere, and then Firepower on top of that, so we can create Orbs of Power via all those scatter grenade defeats. Now, moving on to our chest piece, we are going to use Harmonic Reserves for that Commemoration LMG. Also, Arc Resistance as well as Concussive Dampener. You can see you can switch these out, so you could use Solar Void Stasis depending on the activity you're going into, and then also switch out for Sniper or Melee. Totally depends on you for these two and whatever activity that you're heading into. Now, when we move on to our boots right here, we have Innervation. So when we pick up Orbs of Power, we're going to get our grenade back, as well as double Void Weapon Surge. So whatever Void weapons that we have on are going to do about 17% more damage inside of the PvE realm when these are procced, which we are using those armor charges for, with all of those Orbs of Power that we are collecting ourselves, as well as ones that our fellow Guardians are creating for us, and we can collect those as well. And last but certainly not least, on our class item, we got Powerful Attraction and Double Bomber. So when we throw down our Rift to cast that Child of the Old Gods, we're going to get our grenade back fast because of the Double Bomber. And then all of the Orbs of Power in our vicinity are going to be collected automatically, which will help us to get that armor charge for Void Weapon Surge, as well as Innervation. So these mods are great for this build, allowing us to throw even more grenades and proc the Devour consistently while having the weakening on targets because of the Child of the Old Gods. So we're going to be throwing down rifts with this build, shooting those stronger enemies, getting the weakening on them, having them be defeated in whatever fashion, creating orbs of power as well as void breaches everywhere. When we pick those up, we're going to get the overshield as well as that detonating burst of weakening because of our artifact this season. And then our grenades just in general get a nice little bit of buff, having 2 of the scatter grenades because of the Nothing Manacles, and then they track because of the Nothing Manacles, allowing us to get our class ability back, creating weakening because of them, as well as giving all of our void weapons volatile rounds. So this build super fun for the void subclass. Like I said, an S tier build no matter what season it is, but when the season specializes in void on the artifact like this season in Season of the Deep, this build goes up to a 15 out of 10 easily. So hopefully y'all enjoy these kinds of videos. I appreciate that support lately. Y'all have been killing it. If you do like the videos, don't be afraid. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, join the Discord, everything like that, all in the description. So again, truly appreciate that support. Hopefully y'all enjoy this Nothing Manacles build for the Season of the Deep. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.